let's talk manufacturing. Every company out there is just laser focused on one thing, right? Efficiency. How do we make things faster, cheaper, better? But what if the biggest drag on your process, the biggest inefficiency, is something you can't even see? It's a massive blind spot that most of modern business is completely missing. So let's dive in and figure out what's going on. Okay, so you've got your process dialed in. You're measuring production time down to the microsecond. You know, your costs down to a fraction of a penny. But is it clean? I mean, what about the environmental cost? We're talking about all the wasted energy, the leftover material, the CO2 getting pumped out, all these costs that, they just don't show up on a typical balance sheet. And that simple question, it blows open a huge gap in how pretty much everyone operates. So let's talk about that blind spot. For decades, right, optimizing a business has been this well-defined game. It had clear rules, a clear scorecard, but it turns out that scorecard was missing something huge. Okay, so traditionally, businesses have been juggling four big things: cost, time, quality, and flexibility. It's often called the devil's quadrangle. It's like you're spinning plates, right? You push down on cost, and maybe quality or time takes a hit. It's this constant, frantic balancing act. But look at the image on the right. That old model? It's not just outdated. It's dangerously incomplete. There's a new player in the game. And here's the kicker. When you're only optimizing for those four things, you are completely ignoring your environmental footprint. It's literally like trying to sail across the ocean with a map that's just missing North America. A huge piece of the puzzle is gone, and the true cost of what you're doing stays totally hidden. So how do we fix this? Simple. We have to update the map. It's time to add a fifth, absolutely critical dimension to how we think about success. And that brings us to this idea called Green Business Process Management, or Green BPM for short. Now, this isn't about throwing out everything we know, not at all. It's about giving it a massive upgrade. We take those four classic metrics and we add sustainability right in the middle, turning that old quadrangle into a brand new Pentadon. And look, this is not some nice-to-have thing anymore. The pressure is coming from everywhere. You've got governments passing stricter regulations, you've got customers who are, actually demanding greener products, and even investors are starting to see that ignoring the environment is a huge business risk. The bottom line is, you just can't afford to ignore this anymore. But here's the problem, right? There's that old saying, you can't manage what you can't measure. So how do you make this invisible environmental cost, visible? How do you make it something you can actually act on? Well, let's take a look at a tool that's designed to do exactly that. The whole idea revolves around a monitoring dashboard that tracks what are called key environmental indicators, or KEIs. Seriously, just think of them as KPIs, but for the planet. We're talking about tracking stuff like CO2 emissions, how much energy you're using, how much waste you're creating for every single step of your process. Okay, so to really get how this works, we need to quickly talk about something called BPMN. Don't worry, it's pretty simple. It's basically the universal language for flowcharts in the business world. It's how companies map out literally everything, from building a car to processing an invoice. And the basics are super, super simple. You've got a circle to start the process, you've got these rectangles for each task or step, you've got diamonds for when you have to make a decision, and then another circle for the end. That's pretty much it. And this simple visual map, that's our canvas. That's where we're going to paint all of this new environmental data. All right, so we've got the big idea, and we've got the visual language. Now, let's pop the hood and look at the engine itself. How does this thing actually take raw data and turn it into something useful? The whole system is actually pretty clean and simple. You've got three layers. Up top, there's the web client. That's the dashboard, the part you actually see and interact with. In the middle, you have the server, which is like the brain of the operation, doing all the hard work. And at the bottom, you just have the file storage, where it keeps the maps and the data. So the journey of the data is a simple four-step process. First, you upload two things, your BPMN process map and something called an event log. Just think of the event log as a digital diary that tracks exactly when each step happened. It's the raw data. Second, the system checks the files to make sure they're not corrupted or anything. Third, the server uses this really cool open source tool to crunch all the numbers. And finally, boom, it sends the results to the dashboard for you to see. Okay, this is where it gets really cool. This is where all that theory comes together. Let's see what actually happens when you feed a regular old manufacturing process into this thing. This is the big reveal. So here's the before. It's a totally standard, clean process map for manufacturing something. You see all the steps, right? You receive materials, you inspect them, you manufacture the product, you get the idea. It's useful, for sure, but it's completely silent on one key thing, its environmental impact. It tells you nothing about. And now, the after. This is the exact same process map, but look at it. The tool has laid all this critical environmental data right on top of it. Suddenly, every single step is showing you its energy cost. The invisible has just been made completely visible. And this is the real power of visualizing data like this. You don't have to dig through spreadsheets. With a simple bar chart, you can instantly spot the problem areas. In this example, it's totally obvious that the manufacturer product step is the big energy hog. Before, that might have just been a guess, a hunch. Now, it's a cold, hard fact you can do something about. But it gets even better than that. You can actually compare different production runs against each other, and you can measure them against your sustainability goals. See that dotted line on the chart? That's the target you're aiming for. So a manager can see, just at a glance, are we on track? Are the changes we're making actually working? It's all right there. So, what does all of this mean for the future of manufacturing, and really for business in general? Let's bring it all home. You know, it all comes back to that classic saying, you can't manage what you can't measure. And for way too long, sustainability has just been this vague, abstract goal, mainly because it was just so darn hard to measure it, step by step. And that's the real game changer here. A tool like this takes a fuzzy corporate goal like, let's reduce our carbon footprint, and it turns it into hard, actionable data that a manager on the floor can see, understand, and use to make better decisions, every single step of the way. So that leaves us with one last big question to think about. Forget just manufacturing for a second. Imagine a world where every business process, we're talking logistics, shipping, finance, even HR, has its environmental impact measured in real time. Just think, what kinds of new, smarter decisions could we all make? What kind of world could we start to build?